Different key total.
Oh my god, I feel like I just got called to The Price is Right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 8th or 9th episode of I'm Not Crazy. It's me, your host, Andrew. Today we do have Jose.
Hello.
This is also your camera. You can look at this
That's
one.
me. Hi.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm Jose.
It's Jose. Jose's been a friend of mine for a long time. We've been friends for like 3 years. I mean, if you count that month that we didn't talk to each other, so it's like...
I would use that term loosely.
It's like 2 years and 11 months.
Yeah. No, we've been friends for a while.
So, today, we're going to be changing up the format of the show it's had. Jose is going to be our first of the rotating guests. So that seat, I'm just going to keep it rotating. We're going to have people come in, friends, family, people that I connect with that I feel like would work well with the podcast and specifically cater topics to them and, try something different out. Let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, we'll figure it out. But we're here.
We're here. So was this topic catered to me specifically?
So I did pick this just because me and you...
It's about a gay.
No, it's actually, there's no gay sex in this. There is no gay sex. So, listen, saying, if any publications want to talk about how good and progressive I'm being, Jose is gay. And as he did say earlier also, he is, would you like me to say Latino?
Yes.
Or Latinx?
No, that's not a real word. Latino works for
Latinx? So Latino, and he is gay. So clap it up, everyone.
I applaud you for being so progressive.
It sounds like there's an audience.
Thank you, audience. Thank you.
There's 4 people in this room, including us too. So today, for the 3rd time, I am going to cover the murder of Andre Daigle. And I picked this specifically, I figured you would be really good for this episode because there's a psychic involved, there's a murder case, there's a high-speed car chase. It gets pretty wild.
I mean, I'm intrigued.
I figured you would be, which is why I asked you to be on today. So let me give you the intro, and then we will go into our sources after that. On June 9th... I always mess it up the first time. I never do it right the first time. On June 9th, 1987, Andre Daigle and his friend met at a chain restaurant, Chichis. After a few drinks, Andre decides to give a woman he'd met at the bar a ride home. That would be the last time anyone has ever saw Andre. After 4 long days, his sister would contact a local psychic by the name of Rosemary Kerr in a last-ditch attempt to find her brother. Join us as we explore the grisly murder of Andre Daigle and the curious mind of Rosemary Kerr.
So that totally went differently than I was expecting, because I thought the lady at Chichis was going to go missing. And I mean, normal people call the cops when someone goes missing. I mean, not a psychic.
So, a little bit of police incompetence here. Tad bit. We're going to see that as we go. So this happens in New Orleans in the 80s.
Ah, okay.
So, I don't know what the police situation was looking like, but it seems like they might be a tad bit underfunded. Why are you singing Take On Me?
I don't know, it's the 80s.
Oh, yeah, it was 87, so it's like right in the 80s. Oh. It's like the 80s. Mm-hmm. This is the year Joshua Tree by U2 came out. Wow. Actual fact.
Wow.
Yeah. The story for this episode has been pieced together using different articles and an episode of Psychic Investigators. Now, speaking of Psychic Investigators, okay? No one shut this off, please. Continue listening to the show, right? Just continue. But if you do decide to take a break, just please come back. Don't watch the full Psychic Investigators episode. I guarantee this is better than that. But just take 5 minutes and pause this show. And you're going to go onto YouTube and you're going to search Decoy Dolly Psychic Investigators. It's under a channel named True Crime Central. And you're going to go to the 4-second mark and look at the man's facial hair. Now, I'm just going to describe it to you, right? He has a full beard with this much of his chin missing. So his entire chin is just exposed and it just goes under it, right?
Oh, okay. So
but he looks like
he has
a hobbit
chin,
man.
Though.
Yes.
I thought you meant like his actual chin was
no,
missing.
the hair on his chin. No, because I'm thinking he doesn't have a very prominent chin, but he does have one.
All right, but he has a chin.
Yeah. Okay. It's not like flatted, But he looks like a Hobbit man, and his nails are super long, and he's like, listen. All respect to the guy, right? But they're gross. They're absolutely disgusting. And it's just, he's such a character in himself.
Like Guinness
Did you see
Book
it?
of World Records long, or like...
Quite long. Like I may get them trimmed later and paint them long.
Okay.
Looks like he's growing them out so that they might have cracked on him. My mother was a beautician growing up, so I got some inside knowledge about how women do their nails. Just saying. Oh, before we continue, before we get into the main episode, I just want to give a quick thank you. Yeah. So this is uranium glass. And it's glass that has uranium in it. When you put a black light to it, it glows. It's really interesting. My stepmom and my dad got me some uranium glass. And it's really cool. And it's going to be eventually on a shelf with a dedicated light. I just wanted to show those off because they're super sick. Look at this one. It's a skull. So sick.
I love that one.
This is a Norse time stone? Clock stone?
Yes, you just said
Clock stone, I think. But yeah, it's super cool.
So,
and this is a ghost girl.
So I know this one's like old.
Yeah, this one I believe is the oldest.
Also old, or is this newer uranium?
I want to say they're probably repurposed uranium glass because I think the manufacturing of it is illegal now. Okay. But I don't know if you could repurpose already made uranium glass, like melt this down and remake it into something.
Okay.
I also don't know if you could do that in glass making in general. I don't know if that's how glass works.
I've seen how glass is made. I don't know if you could remake.
Is it
glass.
from sand?
Yes.
It's pounded really hard, right? It's the pressure.
No, it's melted.
Oh, it's not like a diamond.
No.
Oh, I thought it was like a
it's
diamond.
Like melted sand, and then they blow it. I know a little about that. I've seen a documentary.
What was it called?
I don't know. Blowing
Let me
sand.
blow this shit. Blowing sand.
How to blow.
So.
That was a different documentary, sorry.
How to blow?
Yeah.
It was volume 6. This is the night of. So we're going to get into the actual disappearance of Mr. Andre. Okay?
Yes. At Chichis.
At Chichis, which we will get into. And I'm very happy that you're here because it turns out that even though it was founded in Minnesota, it is a Spanish word saying. You don't know what it means?
I just know it was a defunct restaurant, and there was one on Staten Island.
Was there really?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I knew we had a Chevy's.
No.
Which is, this is so crazy that this is coming up because I made cornmeal yesterday.
Wait, you made cornmeal?
I did.
Why?
Because have you ever had Chevy's cornmeal? The sweet cornmeal?
No.
It's like it was so fucking good. And I have been thinking about it since I was a kid, and I made it last night, and it was delicious. I ate all of it. It's like, it's cornmeal. I'm not going to go into the recipe of how to make cornmeal, but it means something. It's something with a T.
Let's be completely transparent here. I'm half Cuban, and my Spanish is not great.
And I don't think that it's a Cuban thing.
No, it's not. No. Tamales.
There's no mustard on it.
Tamales are Mexican, and Chichis was a Mexican restaurant. Or Tex-Mex, maybe.
Correct.
But there was a Chichis on, I believe it was Highland Boulevard, like back in the day. See,
because Chevy's was in the Highland Plaza Mart. I can tell you that for a fact. It's where the CVS was.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Is that what you're thinking of? Because I don't remember Chichis, but you're older than me.
Shit. I'm pretty sure I'm almost like 100.
Okay, wait. Why are we talking about Chichis?
I'm almost 100% positive there was a Chichis on Staten Island. Like, I'm for sure I ate at Chichis on Staten Island.
That's fair. The night of. So Andre Daigle, he was a carpenter from New Orleans, not Staten Island, and had been doing local jobs with a friend named Joe Lapinto. Joe Lapinto was a friend of his that he'd been working with, so that's more or less why he was in the town with the Chichis. He was said to be very likable and popular with the people around him. On Tuesday, June 9th, after a long day of carpentry, like Jesus, thank you guys, Andre Daigle decided to meet up with another friend named Nick Shelley. Now, Nick eventually would become instrumental in the search for Andre. Andre and Nick arrived at Chichis, and throughout the night, Andre would drift off to talk to a woman at the bar. She called herself Thelma. So like Velma, but with a little bit of a lisp.
Okay.
You know?
Thelma.
Thelma. Thelma, Andre, and Nick would go on to have a fun night at Chichis, enjoying the food that would eventually cause a rash of food poisoning and bad publicity, ruining the Chichis name forever. Chichis also basically means tits in Spanish, so that's fun.
So, not my Spanish, but okay, I'll go with it.
We're going to go with the Mexican Spanish here.
Yeah, well, that's why I had no idea what you were saying when you said it meant something.
Yeah, so Chichis apparently means tits.
Okay. Tetas. That's what we call tits.
Tetas.
Tetas.
Tetas. Let me see your tetas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. I don't know how to say let me see in Spanish. So.
Puedo ver sus tetas.
Is that really?
Yeah.
Oh, you do speak Spanish.
I do.
Yeah, I forgot that you speak actual Spanish. Andre would go on to meet the woman at the bar going by the name of Thelma, and Thelma would hit it off with Andre and would be seen speaking to him numerous times throughout the night, being very friendly and flirtatious. At some point, Andre and Nick decided that they had enough as they left tits.
Alcohol or enough tits?
Alcohol.
Okay.
The only tits that I think Andre was seeing that night, potentially with Thelma's. Either that or Nick, depending on how much alcohol they had.
Mm.
You know, those carpenters.
I don't know any carpenters either.
As they left the bar, Thelma would follow them, and I know one carpenter, his name is Jesus Christ. As they left the bar, Thelma would follow them and ask Andre for a ride. She claimed her friend was pregnant and home alone, so she wanted to check on her. Andre said yes, and he and Nick parted ways. Andre was with this woman at the bar for like at least 4 or 5 hours. Okay. So the thought of him like giving her a ride home, she's like, "Do you mind?" It's more of like she's asking because she wants to go check on her friend, and less that she needs a ride.
So
home.
It's not like she chased him out to the parking lot and was like, "Oh, random man."
From what it seemed like, it was very like, "Sure, no problem." Like almost like it was going to lead to them fucking. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what it seemed like, right? This would be the last time Nick would see Andre. Bad timing for the music. For the next few days, Andre's family and friends would contact the police, begging them to look for him, but they refused, assuming that he had gone off drunk with Thelma and would just be back soon. So here is the dilemma that happens with missing persons. It's a lot of sex
in several days.
This is the problem that happens with missing persons, right? Is if someone is over the age of 18, mm-hmm. you are allowed to go missing by legally. That is you do not need to tell a fucking soul where you're going. It does not matter who. It doesn't matter if they're your parents, grandparents. You don't need to fucking tell anybody. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, there is also a pattern that people normally follow. And for the most part, people don't just get up and disappear when they meet someone.
Unless they're ugly.
Unless they're ugly. I accidentally stopped recording when I did that.
You literally just closed your mirror. Like, okay, we're done.
You figured it out. They must have been ugly. Actually, Andre was a very good-looking man.
Well, I was more thinking...
Because he was a carpenter, like Jesus.
Thelma might have been.
Thelma was pretty fucking hot.
Was she?
I don't know. I'm just making that up.
All right.
I don't know.
Have you seen carpenters? They're usually, like, burly.
Fuck and... yeah, long hair, nailed to a cross.
Hair, like, you know...
Nailed to a cross is what I said. That made me laugh very hard.
I'm going to have to go to church on Sunday.
So now 4 days would pass, okay? And Andre's sister, Elise Daigle McKinley, started to squirm. And again, I will say for the 3rd time, when I wrote this, I accidentally wrote squirt and didn't realize. And when I was rereading it, I made myself laugh
All right,
very
I just
hard.
want to know where it said that she started to squirm.
I wrote that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because she was like, I just need to figure this out. I'm in California.
Interesting word choice.
Fair. That's fair. So just to give you a heads up on the family, because I feel like I didn't write this down, but it's important. Okay. There's the sister, Elise.
I didn't see the script anyway.
Fair. There's the sister, Elise. She's the one in California. She does not go to Louisiana at any point. There is another sister in Louisiana, and then there were 2 brothers in Louisiana. Okay. And then there's Nick, his best friend. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're looking at. So in Louisiana, there's a sister, 2 brothers, best friend Nick. Right?
Is Nick worried at all?
Nick is involved with the search.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to see in a second, Nick is very involved with the search. Not having any way to physically help the situation, because as I said, she was in California, she thought of a different way. Now, there is some conflicting information given on the reason why she went to a psychic, specifically. Some of the sources said that it was suggested by her friend that day, because they were like trying to just scramble, figure things out. And her friend was like, why don't you just go to a psychic? What could it hurt? The other sources say that she had actually gone to Rosemary Kerr a couple days before with friends, and they had just gone for fun. and she thought of it and just said, fuck it, let me just go see her again.
You mean before he disappeared?
Before he disappeared,
okay.
Yeah. It could be a combination of both. It could be that they went and they were like, why don't you just go back to the psychic we went to? Who knows? But either way, she went to Rosemary Kerr. But who is Rosemary Kerr?
A psychic.
This next section is called Rosemary Kerr. But confetti.
Oh my god.
Shameless plug. Can you please follow the podcast?
Follow it. Download.
Tell someone about it. Tell your friends.
Yeah.
Tell your grandma.
Yeah. Follow the podcast. He's got minorities.
I do. So Rosemary Kerr. She was a self-proclaimed, I'm going to say a couple things here. Let me know if you need help with any of them. Clairvoyant, medium, psychometrist, and psychic investigator living in Escondido, California, not far from Elise.
So I got all of those.
You just made a dragon sound.
Exometrist?
Oh, psychometrist?
Psychometrist.
What's really interesting is so a clairvoyant is someone, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Someone who reads the future.
I believe so.
A medium is someone that speaks to the dead.
Yes.
A psychic investigator is someone who investigates psychic phenomena, I assume.
With the police, I presume, yes.
Yeah, either way, right? And then the psychometrist, which is the most interesting because it sounds the most fake, is the most real out of them. It's basically like, it means she's qualified to read metrics for psych reports. So like when they do a study, she will read the data and interpret the data, more or less.
Oh, okay.
So she has like
some
she isn't
training.
just a psychic.
Okay.
She does more with herself. It's just the psychic stuff is something that she claims was happening her whole life, and she always had visions and blah, blah, blah. Even though Rosemary's from California at this point, when she opens her mouth, you could tell she's from New York. She's from Brooklyn. Brooklyn, where Brooklyn at?
Brooklyn.
Kerr claimed that she had visions from a young age and was a successful psychic before and after this case, which makes sense.
There's
so now,
evidence of her being psychic?
She had been a psychic at this point. She's in her 50s by this point.
Oh, okay.
So she'd been doing this for a very long time. And I don't know if she helped investigators before this, if this was the first time she did this, but she has gone on to help people after, investigative-wise. So now we will get to the day of. Elise would make an appointment and be told to bring a map of Louisiana and a picture of Andre with her to the appointment. On the day of, she sat down and the reading began. As she began, she would complain of a terrible headache, her being Rosemary, as if she was being struck in the head, while also seeing visions of a black truck with a very large scratch down one whole side, large enough to recognize the truck from far away. Elise claimed her brother had a white car, not yet knowing that he'd recently just gotten a new car, which was a black truck a few days earlier. The map of Louisiana was then laid down on the table, and Rosemary began to lay her fingers across it. She claimed her fingers would start to pick up the vibrations coming from the map. That's how she spoke. It's at this point that Rosemary would talk about visions of a sandy beach, a swamp, a low bridge, and the number 7. All this before a shock of electricity jolted into my fingers, and it would point to one place, Slidell, Louisiana. This was where she said that they had the biggest chance of finding her brother and hopefully her brother's truck and hopefully her brother. So this is the reading. There's a lot of things here. There's first, she complained about having a headache. She had never been to Louisiana, and this entire time she was running her fingers over the map of Louisiana, just going over the whole thing. And while she's doing that, she was claiming that she was seeing a truck with a large scratch down the side, a black truck. Elise, the sister, claimed he did not have a black truck, he had a white car. She said, I can't tell you what is right or wrong, I'm just going to tell you what I see. It turns out it was correct. He had sold his car a couple days prior and gotten a black truck, which is kind of nuts. So as she's running her fingers over it, she says she sees a sandy beach, a swamp, a low bridge, and the number 7, which will all come into play. And she tells them to go to Slidell, Louisiana. Now, the sister kind of takes this very serious because she's like, this is the first time anyone is giving me any information at all about what's going on. So she calls up Nick and Andre, who back in Louisiana had just arrived back from a search and was sitting in the kitchen planning the next day's efforts. While coordinating, the phone would ring and Elise would tell the mother, I believe, everything that had just happened in the reading, right? So they immediately dropped everything. The entire family was just like, screw it. We're done for tonight anyway. We were going to go out tomorrow. Let's just go out tonight and do more. We were going to sit home anyway. So they decide to go and make the 30-mile drive down to Slidell. So now, this is Louisiana. There's a lot of, like, highways and shit. So 30 miles is 30 miles of highway. So it, probably takes you 20 minutes at most to get there.
Gas was cheaper back then. So.
Gas was cheaper. This was 87. So gas, what was it, 2 cents a gallon?
Well, I mean, maybe.
I mean, this was right after horses.
75.
So they were just using gas. They had plenty.
Hey.
Yeah.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, I mean, they were still like, they still believed in like the consumption.
What?
They drive into Slidell, and about 5 minutes away from a low bridge, I shit you not, on the other side of the street, driving opposite of them, goes a black truck with a huge scratch on the side. Now, there's 2 cars. There's the brother Chris in the front, and then the sister driving in the back.
Okay.
Sister...
Where's Nick?
Nick is in the car with Chris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Nick and Chris are in the front seat. I don't know who's in the back seat. I assume one of the other brothers and a friend. And then I know there's 4 people in that car. And then I don't know who else. More or less, Nick and Chris are in one car, and then his other sister's in the other car. His sister pulls up next to him.
You're all right?
Yeah, sure. I can't breathe out of my nose fully, so I'm like running out of breath.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
You just can't breathe in your nose permanently?
This is like deviated septum, but yeah.
From what?
From being deviated? Like, I was born that way.
All right, gaga. So, it's at this point that they pull along the car, whatever. They tell her, call mom, tell her to call the police, call everybody. And then the sister exits off, and Chris starts to follow this truck. They make a U-turn, they start to follow the truck. It's at this point that the men in the truck start to catch on that they're getting followed. And they start speeding up, trying to lose them. This is where the chase starts happening. They start to speed up and slow down randomly, weaving in and out of traffic. And they start to take multiple ramps. And right before they get to the end, they swerve back on, trying to lose them, trying to bait them to go back onto to get off, right? Eventually, after driving down the highway and going off and on for a while, they finally take an exit, stay on the exit, and get off. What they didn't realize is that it was a deserted road of an interstate that wasn't really used anymore, and it was a dead end. So they were eventually going to get to a dead end. Chris keeps following, getting more nervous as he goes down this road, knowing that the police are on the interstate. They think they're on the interstate. All he's thinking is they're not going to go down a side street. They're going to keep going down the interstate trying to find. So he's scared to lose the truck totally. So he decides, I'm going to just follow them either way. We can figure out the police situation.
It's the 80s. There's no cell phones. Like, you can't just pick up a phone and call the cops and say, hey, I'm on this road.
Exactly.
We got off the highway.
And that's a huge part of this, is that it's just of the time. It's just they had to just hope for the best. They were literally using maps still. Like she brought a map of Louisiana to a psychic.
Actual
that is such an old sentence. They all continue down the road until they get to the dead end. Now at this point, right before the dead end, maybe 50 yards before the actual end of the road, there was a bar, and it was open. So they drop Nick off at the bar, and they keep driving past to go to this car, right? Nick is in the bar calling the police, and...
I thought he was thirsty.
Yeah, he went in to go have a drink real quick. He was very stressed. And Chris and the friends continue driving, and they realize that the car is no longer driving forward. The lights are now off, and it had turned around and was facing them with its lights off.
Yeah.
Right? So now at this point, the rest of the car panicked because, like I said, it was turned fully around, facing them, and they shut off their lights, just to be clear. And Andre's truck would then start to inch towards them, more or less like they threw it in neutral. And the car was still off. So they didn't know if they had guns. They didn't know what they were trying to do. They didn't know if they were going to try to crash the car into them. They had no idea. So what they did was 2 of the guys in the car, Chris and someone else, opened their doors, and it's Louisiana, they all had guns, pulled their guns out and pointed at the truck like they were cops, like through the window, using the door as cover.
Okay.
The car then turns the headlights on as soon as he sees them do that, turns the headlights on and drives past them slow, and as soon as he gets close to them, starts driving crazy fast, right? So I guess he made it look like he was going to pull over and then speeds past them.
Yeah.
They get back in the car, they turn around, they leave Nick at the bar, which I think is hilarious. And at this point...
So they don't pick him up on the way?
No. They left him there. Miraculously, they had come down this street not 30 seconds before, right? A minute at most. Miraculously, there is now a cop sitting on the side of the road. They go to the cop. They tell him what happened. They show him the pictures of Andre, whatever. And after some confusion, the cop finally says, let me go get these guys. There was a very high-speed chase. I think they wound up crashing. They didn't die, but they wound up crashing. Mm-hmm. And both men were apprehended and identified as Michael Phillips and Charles Gervais. They say Gervais, but I'm going to say Gervais because Ricky is king. Both men had a history of petty crime and car theft, with both of them having spent time in prison for the said crimes.
Prison.
It's like prison, but, you know, there's elements of Christmas. So, this is
Santa Claus the warden?
Yeah.
Okay.
He calls them all his ho-ho-hos. Thank you, everyone. This is what I find to be very interesting, okay? Because the cops who had already left it up to the family to figure out, the family literally chased these people down using the help of a psychic. The cops are nowhere to be found in this whole story. And the cops know he's missing, right? So while they're doing this, they assumed immediately what had happened was that these two guys jacked the car and left Andre on the side of the road. And Andre was 30 miles away from home and was just wandering around and was lost like a little boy.
That was the best thing they could come up with.
That was what they came up with, yeah. Which is hilarious because they're like, well, maybe he just got his car taken and he's just walking around getting like food or something.
He's lost in the woods somewhere.
It's so stupid. It is so stupid. So then eventually they bring the men to the station and they start asking them questions about the car theft. Gervais just refuses to speak. Gervais, fuck him.
Gervais?
He refuses to speak. On his the notice they have pictures of it on Psychic Investigators, right? Mm-hmm. On the thing where you waive your rights, he puts no and then signs his name underneath, right? On the other total flip side, Phillips confesses everything immediately, right? So now the cops are like, "Why'd you steal that car?" And he's like, "I didn't mean to kill him." And I was like, what? What are you talking about? He explains the entire murder, everything. He explained it front to back. And once Gervais knew that Andre had more or less spilt the beans. Yeah. I love me some beans. Once he knew that he did that, he then said, "Let me tell you my side of the story." And told him his side of the story. Okay. And this is what we have, which is the murder of Andre Daigle.
All right.
Now, you ready for this?
I am so ready.
Things are going to start going like this.
Oh.
Interweaving. You're going to intertwining.
So, wait.
Yeah, let's get questions out.
Okay, wait. Hold on.
I'm holding!
So, dude confesses.
Uh-huh.
What's left? He confessed.
Oh, so we got to... So now it's... Did
they not believe the confession, or...
Now that we're going to see how close the confession was to Rosemary Kerr's reading.
Okay.
And this is where she really starts to shine in the story. Because it's kind of unreal how close she gets to all the details. Okay?
And Thelma, does she come up in this confession at all? Or
Thelma does come up.
Okay.
They do explain who Thelma is. And we will get into who Thelma is in a second. Actually, no. I'm sorry. Wrong. I did not read this. You're right. My apologies.
You piece of shit.
I'm so sorry. I wrote here, but this would change once the men started to confess, explaining not only how they murdered Andre, but also how they had murdered him and who Thelma was. So,
do you want to try this again?
Yeah, sorry. So now that we know who Thelma is dating Phillips.
Ah, that whore.
She is a stupid whore. So now we're going to get into the murder. Let's be respectful, okay? You know, it's time to talk about the murder of Andre. So Andre, as we know, agreed to give Thelma a ride.
Yeah.
Left only after saying goodbye to Nick. Mm-hmm. The two would then drive over to the house that Thelma directed them to, which was apparently her pregnant friend. Mm-hmm. Having gotten to know Andre by this point, she invites him into the house, where he presumably said yes because, you know, he died in the house.
And he wanted some...
He thought he was going to eat her puss. And maybe the pregnant ladies too. They go inside. Andre is then ambushed by Phillips and Gervais. And now, once again, it's not weird that he went inside at this point, in my opinion, because he had been with her the whole night. Yeah. So you want to come meet my friends? Sure. I've been talking to you for the last 5-6 hours. Yeah. Whatever.
And he was drunk.
And he was drunk, horny. Probably, and he thought he was going to have sex with the pregnant...
Pretty Thelma.
Woman. And Thelma. So sexy, Thelma.
Sexy Thelma.
I wore my giraffe panties for you today, Andre. They have giraffes on them. That's Thelma.
Every time you say Thelma, I'm just like, Scooby Doo.
Yeah, it's Scooby Doo. That's what I think of. It's just Scooby Doo with a lisp.
I mean, yeah. Scooby Doo, where are you?
It turns out Thelma Horn was dating Phillips.
Wait, her last name was...
fuck it up. I knew I wrote it later.
Wait, her last name was Horn? Yeah. Thelma Horn.
Actually, technically, it's with an E, so it could be Horny.
Thelma Horny.
Thelma Horny. So now we have...
How you do it?
Charles
my name's
Phillips.
Thelma. Thelma Horny. Let's just get out of here right now. You want to see my giraffe
panties? So you come to tits often?
You know, in Mexico, Chichis means tits.
You should try their cornmeal. It's very sweet.
Can I see yours?
So, once... Oh, this is a terrible transition. Once inside, they ambush him.
Inside of Thelma?
Thelma's home, not Thelma herself. He never did make it inside of Thelma. Unfortunately
Poor
for
guy.
him. Yeah, that would have been at least, you know...
Well, this is a good way to
There's
go
a give
out.
or take there, you know?
Yeah.
So this next part is a tad brutal.
I won't make any sex jokes.
At this point, one of the hen, one of the men would take out a claw hammer and take turns striking Andre on the head, hitting him 11 times, fracturing his skull. They then laid him down on his stomach, grabbed the vacuum cleaner, wrapped the cord around him, put their foot in his back, and pulled until he was dead. They then took his body, stuffed it into the bottom of an old sofa. They then took the sofa and dropped it off in the Manchik Swamp on a sandy shoreline just off of exit 7 on a nearby highway.
Wait. He got hit 11 times,
11 times
with a hammer.
claw hammer. Which
and
is
then
like...
they were like, no, he's not dead
He
yet.
wasn't dead.
What is...
From what? So I love true crime.
What in the
right?
superhero crap is this? Like, how is he not dead?
Human bodies are both insanely delicate and also insanely resilient at the same time, right? You could accidentally step on glass in your foot and die of an infection. You could get shot in the head with a .22 like this and live and just be fine. It's bizarre.
So maybe I've seen too much Game of Thrones, but like when your head gets smashed in, you're usually dead right away.
I think that what more or less, I don't know if his head got smashed in because it was fractured. If it was broken, it would have been broke. Like if it was smashed totally like an egg, it would have been broken. This was fractured. So I think that they cracked it and fucked his brain, but he was still breathing.
Okay.
You know, and if you ever see anybody that like gets head trauma, like to the point where they're fucked up, if you ever watch those videos, if you're psychotic, hey.
Yeah, rotten.com.
Yeah, it's a lot worse than that. That's fucked. Does anybody remember that's fucked.com? You remember that's fucked.com?
No, I don't.
It was fucked.
I remember
when you went on,
death.com.
Death.com. The reason for the murder is just as fucked up. And I did write that, but that not from what we're talking about, but it is pretty fucked up.
So apropos.
So now the murder is, the reason for the murder is not hilarious. The reason for the murder gets progressively funnier as we go. Because these guys really had these like grand thoughts and plans that they were going to do that just were so stupid. It's amazing that they thought they would even work to begin with, right?
Okay.
So they wanted to rob him for his truck and his money, and they wanted to buy new guns.
Okay.
You know, which makes sense considering their past crimes. They killed him, according to them, simply to see if they could do it. They claimed that this murder was a trial run because they needed to see if they could do it in order to pull off their master plan. So you ready for this? These two men planned to kill Andre for practice, steal his money in his truck, arm themselves, then travel to Texas. Gervais had heard that there was a prostitution ring, so he
glad
figured...
you didn't say Florida.
No, not this time. He had heard that there was a prostitution ring, so he figured why not kill the head guy and take all the money and then become the king of this prostitution ring. That was legitimately what he said. Apparently the others all said the same thing, all separated from each other, which is so funny. And they had planned it just 6 days before Andre was killed, which means that they planned it 2 days before they killed a man.
So wait, this giant plan to take over a prostitution ring in another state, and they only just they were like, 2 days is enough time. This planned out. We're good. We're
literally, they were like, we have an old sofa. You know, most people could fit in the bottom of that. You know?
I mean, it's Louisiana. It'd probably get eaten by an alligator. I don't understand the need for the sofa.
My whole thing is, don't you think that if you're going to throw a body out into a swamp, why are you going to put him into a sofa and then put it on the shore? Why don't you just throw the body into the fucking swamp?
Yeah, the sofa seems more
suspicious. The sofa is so much more... Thank you. It is so much more suspicious.
They're going to drive by and be like, why is there a sofa on the side of the road?
It's so stupid.
Dump a body into a swamp. Alligators will literally anything.
Yeah,
they would have eaten that in 5 seconds.
It's really, I think, is it crocodiles in Louisiana?
No, so alligators are in swamps. Crocodiles
are in you're right,
the ocean.
You're in like
and,
water.
Yeah. I don't know if we have crocodiles in North America.
I don't think we do now.
Australia has crocodiles. Cuba has crocodiles.
Crocodile. Steve Irwin was killed by manta ray.
I apologize. I don't know if that's actually how you say crocodile in Spanish. Crocodile. I think so. I could also be making it up.
Good.
But yeah, North American alligator. That's like what's in Louisiana.
Alligators roll, right? Are they grab and roll, or are they the ones they do?
They drag you down and they roll around.
I think crocodiles also roll, though.
It's possible.
I'm confused by this.
So I do know the difference is...
Teeth.
Alligators have a rounded snout.
Oh, and the other one's point, right?
Pointed. Alligators are only freshwater. Crocodiles are saltwater as well. But I did just see a TikTok of an alligator in the ocean. So they're starting to branch out and get a little brave. And now I'm afraid to go in the ocean for more than one reason.
Cool. So what about Kerr?
I mean, back to the murder.
So what about Kerr?
What about Thelma?
Now, what about Thelma? We're going to put that right here. What about Thelma? So now, if you were paying close attention in the beginning, you may have already picked up on some interesting consistencies between Kerr and the body being found. Mm-hmm. It would turn out that Kerr's reading would be spot on. Let's go over her reading one more time as a whole. And we will go over and more or less just break it down point by point, right? She claimed that her head was hurting the whole time as if she was getting hit in the head with something. Bam, claw hammer. Saw visions of a black truck with a huge scratch, a swamp, a sandy beach, a low bridge, and the number 7. All of these were claimed before telling them to hurry to Slidell. Now, just to remind you, Andre's sister corrected Kerr and said she had a white car. He had a white car, but Kerr insisted it is a black truck, right?
Yes.
Obviously, her head hurting, like I said, claw hammer. But all the other details also seemed to come true. Mm-hmm. The men were, in fact, leaving Slidell on a low bridge when they were spotted in the exact truck. Andre's body was dumped on a sandy beach in a swamp off of exit 7.
In a couch.
In a couch, which she didn't see.
She didn't see the couch.
She didn't see the couch. Fucking fraud.
Fucking lying
fraud.
bitch.
New York.
Jennifer convertible. Was he rolled up inside like a pull-out couch?
I think that what they did was they had I think it was an old spring couch where you could take the cushions off and then take the spring out. And then there was compartment underneath.
He went inside.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Where there was the big opening, and I'm pretty sure they just put him on the bottom of that. Planning. In my opinion, it validates their story because it shows how stupid they are.
Yeah.
You know, they thought they were so smart that they would get away with this, and they failed on such a monumental level. It's kind of surprising.
Well, they were planning this murder out and taking over a prostitution ring, and they were like, the one thing we're missing is a couch.
Fuck, we just used our last couch on Andre. Where are we going to sit, guys?
Where are the prostitutes going to sit?
So I am not the only one that believes the reading was spot on. It was so good. On. Well, it was so good that Rosemary Kerr was eventually called as an official witness to testify against Andre's killers. And this is why I picked this story. This marks the only time in American history we've covered ghosts, the first ghost in American history to be cited. This is now the first psychic brought in and the only psychic brought in to testify against the murderers.
In a court of law.
In a court of law. Which, in my opinion, as much as the story is great, and they obviously did it, if this was a little bit less cut and dry, I don't really think that this should happen.
I mean...
You know what I mean? I feel like the only reason that this happened the way it did is because we'll see that there was a bunch of other stuff that they had for the trial. Rosemary was just kind of like the cherry on top. She wasn't the main evidence. She just supported all of the main evidence. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even circumstantial. It was just like, these guys did A, B, and C. We know that for a fact. Because they had like the car, the proof, the cops that pulled them over. So they know they stole the car. They confessed to the killings. They know all that. Mm-hmm. So what's really amazing about the case was that all of the details were confirmed by Captain James Gallagher, head of the Kenner Police in that area of Louisiana. He called Kerr, originally thinking that she was a fraud, and he asked her to give the reading over the phone, and this is before anything had gone to the news. No one even knew these people were caught. The family didn't even know they caught them yet. She went through the whole thing, and he was so shocked by how spot on she was that he would eventually not only support everything she said, but would use her in the future many times for other murders, which is pretty interesting to me. He said he was the biggest skeptic on the planet until he met her. She changed everything, which is nuts. So now we will get into the trial. This is now the actual use of Rosemary's testimony. This is very important, Jose. Very important.
I'm curious. Before this, was Rosemary Kerr like a widely known medium or psychic or
no? Do you remember John Edwards crossing over?
Yeah.
Did it start with a B? No, it's a G. No, it's an F. Yes, it's Frank. No, Fren. No, Philip. That's a P.
Frederick.
Frederick? That's the one. Everybody just starts crying.
And it's a room of 77 people.
And everyone has someone with a name.
Someone knows a Frederick.
Everyone knows someone named John that died.
Yeah. He died a horrible death.
Yeah, it's...
No?
Yeah.
Okay. He died peacefully in bed. Yes, me!
That was my job! That was my job!
That was my job! He says hello. And he wishes you a good day, and he hopes you enjoyed your sandwich. I had a sandwich 3 weeks ago.
He hopes that your son is healthy with all the sickness.
Damn it, I don't have a son.
That's what I meant.
Unless... Sweetie, do you have anything to tell us? Are you feeling a certain way?
Yeah, this is the 80s. They didn't do that. They were like, just push it. Just push it down. You'll figure it out when you get older.
Push those feelings deep down. You'll learn to love her. And if not, go hunting.
Yeah, here, take a gun. That's what you need.
With your friend.
Yeah, and then...
I'm doing air quotes for those of you not watching.
Friend. Dick. So the trial.
Too far.
My stepmom listens to this religiously. So the trial. While both men sit in jail and await trial, they start to consult with their lawyers to find the best course of action for them. Gervais, fuck this guy. I keep saying it right. Knows taking the case to trial may lead to a conviction of death. So he pleads guilty and is given life without the possibility of parole. So he just didn't want to be put to death.
Yeah.
Which, whatever. As for Phillips and Horney, they decide to take a chance and plead not guilty. They are hoping by pleading the fifth during the pretrial, they are able to have their confessions become inadmissible in court, meaning that the defense would only be able to use the evidence that they found to convict them, which may sound easy, but can be very difficult. So now just to explain that, right? I didn't know this before this case, but if you confess to the police, and then from the end of the confession to the trial, you plead the fifth and you claim that it was coerced in any way, you can get those confessions dropped. Which I did not know that. And they're inadmissible in court. You cannot bring those up at all. Which I didn't know. And that is very interesting, just in case, in the future you murder
I've seen
someone.
a lot of CSI and I did not know that either.
No, because they were too busy zooming onto a tile and they'd be like, what's that there? And then they would zoom on it and be like, this is a single pubic hair. Yeah, it is a single...
After 8 seasons of CSI Miami, if you need to get rid of a body, you dump it in the Everglades because the alligators are going to eat it.
And not in a couch.
Not in a couch. You don't need the couch.
The couch is unnecessary.
Like,
realistically, they could have donated the couch and they could have gotten good fortune. Maybe they wouldn't have gotten life.
Or they could have still had a couch.
Your Honor, I know they brutally murdered this man by striking him 11 times in the head with a hammer claw. A claw hammer, and then using their foot in the small of his back to choke him with a vacuum cord. But they did donate this couch to the less fortunate. And the judge's like, order. You're free.
You're free to go.
You sound good
served.
to me.
Guilty.
Time served.
Time served. You're good.
4 days.
4 days. That couch is at Goodwill. Okay. And then they go pick it up the next day.
That would be...
They buy back their own couch.
That would be... What a story.
Yeah.
So the trial began with the prostitution, I was going to say. The prosecution calling Rosemary Kerr as a witness. Mm-hmm. And this would mark the first and only time, as I said, a psychic would be called to testify in a U.S. court case. But it turns out the prosecution didn't need her testimony. As I said, they had plenty of evidence on their own. And even though it sounds difficult... it is difficult to convict someone on evidence alone. In this case, it turns out it was really easy because they were really stupid.
Yeah.
The courthouse was silent as Rosemary gave her testimony, claiming that you could hear a pin drop. And all she did was eerily reinforce the evidence presented prior. The courthouse was so obviously compelled by Rosemary's testimony that they immediately had Phillips change his plea mid-trial from not guilty to guilty, him and Horny. And the two of them received life without parole. Rosemary's testimony would be considered the turning point of the trial by basically everyone there. They said that that was the point where it went from, these guys did it to, wow, these guys, like, we know exactly what happened now, which is, again, not great, but whatever. She would, after this, get some notoriety. She would go on to certain shows. She went on Geraldo Rivera, and she went on Oprah.
Rivera?
She went on Geraldo.
He did not find Al Capone's vault.
Geraldo Rivera didn't do anything after Seaview. He just didn't. He did Seaview. He became famous. And then it was very important, right? But then what happened was Geraldo Rivera, he went from like the late 70s, like this reporter, like shutting down this terrible institution. Mm-hmm. And then in the late 80s, he's like, so the teachers flushed the kids down the toilet for Satan? And it's fucking nuts. The transformation that he had is insane.
Well, because that was also the weird time where everybody had a talk show.
And everyone was also obsessed with Satan. It was during the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s, too. And he played a huge role in that.
Oddly enough.
Which she was involved in, Rosemary Kerr. He brought her on as like one of those things.
Really?
Like one of those occult reading episodes, yeah.
Because I was going to say, after he got Seaview shut down, it was taken over by Satanists and murderers.
It was, yeah.
It was.
They were openly sacrificing people so that their shareholders would have better.
At least that's what I
they
grew
would
up
make some
hearing.
money that year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, 100%.
Satan did a lot of business back in the 90s.
Satan was very important to the infrastructure of New York, I heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cropsey, also.
Cropsey, that's a great documentary. It's from native Staten Island.
If you're from Staten Island.
Even if you're not, it's pretty good. They made another documentary about urban legends. Don't watch that one. It's very bad. But
but the Cropsey
one's fucking great.
Grab yourself an iced coffee from Dunkin' and watch the Cropsey Killer documentary.
And make sure you get the pumpkin swirl. It's here for the season.
Yeah,
since
get
we're in
that
September.
Pumpkin swirl.
Gervais would later claim the murder was done as a ritual for cult initiation. So Gervais just kind of went off the edge. And just to play into the point before you continue, I'm sorry.
No.
I don't think that he actually did this for real. I think that he was also seeing what was happening with media at the time, and he was just trying to get some media time. I honestly, because it seems like Gervais, out of the three of them, realistically, even though Phillips was involved in murdering him, I think that Thelma and Gervais,
the masterminds,
were really the masterminds that were like pushing to do it, because Phillips crumbled immediately, did not seem like he was down the entire time, and Thelma was the one that lured him, and Gervais is obviously the ringleader. He's the one that convinced everyone.
You know what? Exactly. I feel like it's probably like Gervais was Thelma and Gervais were like probably the couple in on it together, and then
Thelma was with Phillips.
Really?
Yeah. Oh. Which is why I think Phillips probably went along with it.
Yeah, okay,
because
so
now it's his best friend and his girlfriend now. Like, let's go murder this guy, and he's just like, well, I can't say no now.
Yeah,
which he could have.
You can always say no to murder.
You can forever always say no to murder.
Yes.
Murder is one of those things that you don't have to do.
No,
you just don't. And what's even better is that if you ever are going to plan to murder someone because you want to take over a prostitution ring in Texas, just don't do that, because what's going to happen is you're not going to do that.
No.
You're either going to get killed by them,
people don't run a prostitution ring.
You're going to get put in prison.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, they were probably going to end up murdered by whoever ran the prostitution ring.
That's what I just said.
You don't just take over a prostitution ring.
Yeah.
Like, that's something... People put a lot of thought and effort and time and money into a prostitution ring. They're not letting that go easily.
What happens is whenever a new group of men come in to take over the prostitution ring, they all play 7-Up, and whoever wins gets it. It's a fantastic process to watch. It's like the new Pope getting picked.
I had no idea that's how it worked. I had the misconception that it had to do with
misconsumption. It's the consumption coming back to haunt you from your early days as a child.
Wait, did you guys? You guys talked about consumption in the last episode. I think
consumption is something that I think about often because it's so funny that there was just a disease.
That
and I'd be like, "What is happening?" They'd be like, "I don't know. It's just consuming them."
Oh, they've got the consumption.
I have no idea. They're just consuming.
Everyone in the town is dying. What's wrong? They've got the consumption.
They're consuming for someone.
Everyone had consumption back in the 1800s.
The 1800s was that and dysentery.
Dysentery.
If you've ever played
the Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail, there it is. Yeah. So, in conclusion, do you believe Rosemary Kerr was a psychic?
Yeah. I mean,
kind of do too.
Everything before, they didn't even know the guy had a black truck.
It is absurd. It is absurd. I do not believe in psychics. I don't. Okay, so let me clarify, right? I don't believe in psychics as a whole because there's so many of them. I just don't believe that that's a thing. I would say like 90% of them are probably fake.
I agree with you.
I feel like there is that small percentage of them that even if it's just really good intuition and it's not something supernatural, there is something happening there. And it's hard to deny because there are times in history where there's always like in a group of like fakes, there's always like one or two examples that are like, how the fuck did they fake that? That's really hard to do. Going back to the late 1800s during like the big occult periods of time when they would do seances and stuff, all of those are fake.
Well, yeah, most of those seances...
They had, like, things under the table to make it lift, and they had, like, things set up where they would pull strings and things would move. But then there was, like, the case of those two sisters that Houdini went on this whole thing. Houdini spent his life trying to more or less, like, prove these people wrong. That was, like, his entire second half of his life was dedicated to that. There was only, like, two sisters that he couldn't prove wrong. There were two psychics. And if you ever listen to the... what the hell is the name of the podcast? Lore. If you ever listen to the podcast Lore, it's fantastic. He does a whole episode on it. It's really good. But there's like these examples every like decade of like in a sea of fake psychics, there's like one that's real and one that does something that's unbelievable. And it's so hard to just throw that away. There was also like when you believe in psychics and you believe in the power that they supposedly have, there's a level of you also have to subscribe to other things that I don't necessarily subscribe to. Like, for someone that has a show about the supernatural, cryptids, all that, I am intensely skeptic. Like, I don't believe in anything until I believe in it, more or less. You start down here and work your way up. I don't start with believing it until you prove me wrong. I'm the opposite. So with things like this, I came on thinking this was going to be bullshit, and I ended it like, wow, this is crazy. Kind of like the police chief, you know?
Well, yeah. But it sounds like bullshit.
Until it sounds like bullshit, yeah.
Like, you find out that the truck thing, like...
Yeah.
They had no idea.
So now, the reason I ask is because everyone around her and those involved in the case strongly believed that she was a psychic. But there were skeptics. And I want to give you the skeptic's point of view also because I think it's important. Some believe that she used deductive reasoning and luck to get an accurate reading. Reasonably speaking, after Rosemary heard that he left the bar with someone was never seen again 4 days before that, it wouldn't be crazy to suspect that he had been murdered. Right? So if I came to you and said, hey, my sister, God forbid, what's up, Day-Day? Love that bitch. If my sister went missing and I go to a psychic and I tell them she's been missing for 4 days, she left this bar with a guy. Yeah. Without saying it out loud, you're going to assume, oh, fuck, she's probably dead. Yeah. Something bad happened, right? So it wouldn't be crazy for her to just assume, okay, well, let's treat this as if he's dead. Which, really, she didn't. She didn't say anything about the body or anything like that. She just said about a stolen truck. But let's just go all the way out, right? This is what they claim. It wouldn't be crazy, with that in mind, to see visions of a swamp and a beach in a state full of swamps and beaches. So if you think that he was killed, a pretty good guess of where you would put a body would be a swamp or a beach. To be fair, I think that's pretty reasonable.
And they're in Louisiana, so most likely a swamp.
Most likely a swamp, exactly. Which the swamps in Louisiana they're a combination of beach swamp. So it's like a beachy area that goes into a swamp instead of the ocean, more or less. And then this also goes for the bridges, which is a typical place to dump a body, would be under a low bridge or something like that. And I did look this up because I thought it was important. And it turns out that Louisiana is not even close to one of the top states when it comes to the amount of bridges in the state. Because the first thing I thought of was she's looking at a map, she sees a fuck ton of bridges, she's just going to say a bridge, right? But it turns out Louisiana is like under the top 25 of most bridges in the country. California is number 1.
Is that counting overpasses?
I think it's counting anything that's like bridging something. So it's small bridges, big bridges, doesn't make a difference.
With the amount of like waterways in Louisiana, I wouldn't,
Yeah, I thought the same thing. So I figured maybe that, but that's actually not the case. So there really aren't, Louisiana isn't prominent for bridges. Let's put it that way. And then the number 7. And now this is the thing that I feel like could be argued the most, right? Skeptics believe that if the exit wasn't exit 7, then the number 7 would have been found somewhere else. So if it wasn't exit 7, it would have been mile marker 7. If it wasn't mile marker 7, the truck would have had the number 7 somewhere on it. Like the number 7 would have popped up one way or another. And I think that all of these things separate make a lot of sense. But when you take into account that she nailed every part of it on top of each other, all in one reading, that's where it goes from, okay, yeah, it could be a coincidence to that's such a major amount of information to be coincidental about. And we're not even talking about the truck and her feeling like her head was getting hit with something. Yeah. Those two things also play a huge role. So it's, I don't know. I like I said, I'm very skeptic with things, but I really do believe that something happened here, and I'm happy that it did. I hope that she remains the only psychic to be used in a court case, but I'm glad it happened, and I'm glad these pieces of shit were put in jail and all that, but it's a weird situation for me. Because as cool as this is, I don't want this to happen again. This is crazy.
It's insane that in like a court of law, they brought a psychic in.
From a legal sense, it's nuts. It makes no sense.
And you would think that a defense attorney would just poke holes all over the place in this. But somehow he was like...
The defense did such a terrible job that it never... Their stand... Defender? I have no... That's a good question. I don't know. I didn't look that up. But there's... I would assume it was so bad that they didn't even mention anything about the defense's stance at all. They didn't even mention the defense tried to argue A, B, and C. It was just the prosecution came in and wiped them off the planet, more or less.
Well, it's also not helpful when one of the trio confesses to everything. Yeah.
And then also all three of them then confess after that. Because Thelma was picked up because of Philip's confession, who then confessed the same thing with the prostitution ring and all that stuff. So with all that being said...
Who was feeding Scooby this whole time?
It was Thaggy. Thaggy and Thread.
Thaggy.
Yeah. With Fafney. Yeah, they were feeding Scooby.
I'm just glad.
Yeah, no. He was
Scooby-Doo.
Where are you? This all being said, as I said, I don't really believe that's the case. If one or two of those things were correct and the rest were wrong, I would say maybe that's different. But with every detail being correct and corresponding with something major, because even the number 7, the exit being exit 7 is very major. It's much bigger than mile marker 7 or something like that, because there's mile markers going every mile. This exit could be the only exit 7 for, a fucking 100 miles if that's the only highway. Yeah. So that's much more significant.
Well, you know what, too, that makes me believe it more? She wasn't asking for confirmation.
Yeah, she was talking.
She was telling them.
And when you hear her talk about it, like I said, she talks like this. And she sounds like everything hurts. Like she's like, oh. And then I saw this vision. And the way she talks about it like, she's like, I don't care if it's right. I don't care if it's wrong. It's just what I'm seeing. And if I'm seeing it, then that's just what I'm going to tell you, because then I'd be lying, and I'm not a liar. And that's how she talks. And when
she's from Long Island?
She's from Brooklyn. And she's from the 80s, so that's exactly what she sounds like.
She definitely had like a parliament hanging out the side of her mouth, right?
She took me as that type, yeah. If you look at the documentary, she looks exactly how you would think. She's like a little lady, and she wears like a blackish dress on the show. Yeah, she seems really cool and very down to earth. And everyone that came in contact with her loved her. And I found her obituary, which is how I know she's dead.
Oh,
she did die, but she was pretty old. I mean, if she lived until like last year, she would have been in her 90s.
Oh.
She was loved. I mean, people like her obituary is decently long. Talks about how she changed a lot of people's lives. Mm-hmm. This isn't the only case apparently that she helped solve. It's just the most prominent. So, there's a lot of cool things about this case that I think Rosemary Kerr is a character that even if she wasn't doing anything and this did turn out to be a coincidence, she believed she was doing the right thing. I don't think that she was doing it maliciously like John Edwards or someone like that.
Or Teresa, the Long Island medium.
Fuck Teresa, the Long Island medium. And at the end of the day, Rosemary's testimony not only helped convict killers, but helped in getting them caught to begin with. I'm inclined to say I believe Rosemary Kerr.
I do too. Yeah. Yeah, that.
How crazy is that story?
It's really just insane.
It's a really wild story because there's so many elements of it that are so stupid and over the top that it sounds fake. It sounds like something you'd find in a book from like the 60s of like stories that could be true or could not be because there was no records in small towns. But there's so much record of all this happening. And if you do decide to watch, now that this episode's over, go watch the Psychic Investigators episode. It'll give you, if you like those early 2000s true crime shows or late 90s true crime shows, you'll love it. I'm obsessed with those shows. Me and my mom used to watch them all the time. They are so stupid 90% of the time because they just focus on the dumbest shit. I mean, he
also killed 18 people, but he was a cross-dresser.
Yeah, he murdered an entire kindergarten class with cyanide, but he wore a dress.
The audacity.
I mean, Eisenhower wore dresses and everybody loved him. I mean, no one loved him, to be fair. He did warn us on the military-industrial complex, which is what we're going through now. So, thanks, Eisenhower. So here we are, and we're at the end of our first guest episode. Like I said, I'm sick.
Was that the one married to a lesbian?
What?
Wait, which president was married to a lesbian?
George Bush. I don't know if that's true. I just said it. I don't know if it's true.
No.
Wait, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was married to a lesbian. I can almost guarantee that.
With those pantsuits, it must be true.
He meant who?
Grover Cleveland.
No.
Grover Cleveland? Hold on. When was he president?
Rose Cleveland, the gay first lady.
Oh, that's not what I was thinking of, though.
Love letters to her long term.
But
it is kind of important now. I need to know.
Now I need
figure it out.
Okay,
let's go through all the presidents. George Washington. No.
There was a president that they think his wife was a lesbian, and she like created like basically like gym class in school. Like
Hillary Clinton.
No. Again, just lesbian pantsuits.
What is?
But no, it's like from the 40s or the 50s.
Is it? It's not Roosevelt's wife.
What was her name?
Eleanor.
Maybe.
Oh wait, Eleanor Roosevelt could have been.
Yes.
Actually, I think you're right.
I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt's
I think you're
wife.
right. Yes. No, Eleanor Roosevelt is the wife. Yeah, it was Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I think that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, not Hillary Clinton, who also is probably a lesbian.
So that's the end of the episode. So I'm. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. What'd you think? Did you have a good time?
I had a really great time.
I'm happy. Yeah. We got to do it again.
This was everything I thought it was going to be.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I do plan on covering those twins.
Oh.
And when I do, I will have you on for that episode.
Oh, thank you.
So that we know you will be back.
I also request to be on next time you do a Spanish topic.
That is fair.
I can translate for you.
When I do a chupacabra. Actually, there is a topic that I want to cover soon that I may have you on for then.
Oh, nice.
But we will see because it's already planned out. So let's see what happens.
Nice.
But
no, this is great though.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Is there anything you would like to advertise for yourself? This is your time to shine.
I don't know. Can I talk about my OnlyFans?
Yeah, you can talk about it. Go look at that cock.
No.
I haven't seen it personally. You want me to look it up real quick so I can give a review?
No.
Okay, that's fair.
Fine. No, yeah. So I do. I recently launched I guess you call it like a lifestyle brand, like t-shirts, different accessories. Accessories
for those who don't speak English.
Yeah, no, it's called Broke Royals. Look us up on Instagram.
It's actually really cool. What is the Instagram?
It is a Baroque Roy. Actually, wait. Oh.
Actually, send it to me. I'll put it on screen.
Yeah. There we
got
go.
you.
Because there's like an underscore in there somewhere. But yeah, we just released our first T-shirt delivered.
I saw. It's actually really sick. It's a really nice shirt. I did not get one.
No.
But that's fine. I'm not hurt. I had you on my podcast, but it's fine. I don't need a shirt.
No. I got to bring you one. Also, did some coasters.
The coasters are sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I got to get you something.
Didn't get any of those either.
Table.
Yeah.
Look.
Keep my uranium glass from sweating.
You know I have a full-time job.
I know. I work there too.
Yes, we work together.
So thank you everyone for listening. Please subscribe to the show. Make sure you like it, all that shit. It is now on YouTube. If you've listened to this whole episode and you didn't know, this is the first filmed episode. It is on YouTube. So go to YouTube
I'm
and
the best looking person he knows.
That's why I brought you on, because I said I need the contrast.
Yeah.
Because I am blindingly, just absolutely unhinged, just deliciously beautiful.
I was going to say like Pigman status.
Wow. White.
Pigman of Staten Island.
That's me crying. But cool. All right. Well, have a great day, everyone. Make sure you tell your grandma. I'm going to just make that the catchphrase at this point, because I just can't. It's the only thing that pops in my head when
tell
I'm
your
doing
grandma.
this. Just tell your grandma, because it's so funny to me, because this is like the least grandma-friendly podcast that I can think of.
My grandma would not enjoy this.
My grandmother probably would enjoy it. But listen, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate your time. Make sure you like it, spread it around, tell your grandma, and also everyone else in your family, your friends, all that shit. And tune in next time for I'm Not Crazy.